Hello everyone, this is an Andy in case anybody thinks that Andy sounds a bit strange. But I have sat here next to Andy and I'm going to get him to introduce himself and his podcast and tell us where his podcast came from.
Hi, okay, this is Andy N. Now, of course, what is the reason behind this podcast, Amanda, today?
Narcissism.
Narcissism, yeah. Now, of course, we're talking about a spoken label, and this is a very special spoken label podcast, Amanda, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the 200th episode.
Horrifying. Yeah, now, what was it you wanted to ask me again? Sorry, just to clarify. Sorry, my mind's completely gone today.
It's a similar question to what you ask people. Introduce your podcast and tell everybody where it came from.
Right, okay. Spoken label itself then originally started at the beginning of 2016, 4.5 years ago. And it originally began off as a one-off podcast that had to advertise the work of a friend of mine who just brought his novel out. One became two, and then it became every other month. Then it became monthly, down to fortnightly. You seen the pattern here, Amanda?
Yeah.
Then it went to weekly.
Every other day.
It has been recently, hasn't it? So, well, certainly since lockdown, the last 3.5 months ago now, best age, it's been usually 2 or 3 a week, but it's going to be carrying on to 1 a week eventually.
Yeah.
It just kind of took off life of its own, really.
Okay, so you've asked people to send in questions, and the first one is from Caroline Burrows. And I'm going to cut out the last bit of the question because the next question from somebody else touches on that.
Okay.
So she says, I'd be interested in knowing about when you started, what prompted you to begin, and how you kept motivation going in the early days.
Yeah, as I said before, it was a one-off really with a friend of mine who I'm not going to name, but it was never meant to be 100 episodes, let alone 200. And it just kind of, you know what I mean? It's one of those things that just takes off sometimes, and it's an unexpected bonus or unexpected pleasure, really. Because certainly to keep yourself motivated back in those days was trying to get people to talk to you.
Yeah, and now you can't get them to stop talking to you.
Oh, yeah, completely, yeah. It was honestly to begin with when I first did it around about Amanda. People know it's obviously, I think I'd met you around about that point, haven't I?
Yeah, I remember when we met, you suggested that I be a guest, and then I think it was a few months before it happened.
Yeah, I think I'd started it a couple of months, just about started it. Then we met 2016, wasn't it?
Sounds about right.
Yeah, beginning 2016, yeah. When Spoken Label itself just began then, and started doing a couple of sessions. And it was, certainly back then, it wasn't as smooth an operation as it is now. We'll come on to more later on, but the motivation was just when things weren't going right, it didn't always go right to begin with, that's for any stretch of thought, just to keep going at it. And a lot of it was just single mindedness, but pig-headedness. I'm never going to make a success out of this.
Yeah, and you did.
Yeah.
So the next question is from Bella Canyon, and it's, how have you evolved the podcast since the first episode?
Structure, really. Structure and planning a lot, that's for so sure of it. Because if anyone goes back to the first podcast I did, went on for about 3 hours. We just kept waffling. And it helped matters, if I'm honest. We were drinking as well.
Can you remember who that was with?
Yes, I'm not going to name him.
Alright, okay.
And who's interested, they can go and check it out. It says it's still on there, but I've done better. But the evolution over time, it really was just trying to set myself and set structures on it and to keep it organised. Because I was finding, because when I first started podcasting off, a lot of it came from the job I was doing, Amanda, because you know that, you already don't you? So, and the job I was listening to, we're allowed to listen to like iPods. And I'd gone and picked up an Apple podcast. Not Apple podcast, iTunes, I think.
Yeah.
And I started listening to podcasts in it. And I was finding, the more I got into understanding it, was 3-hour podcasts weren't the best way. So I tended to not, it eventually came down to about 40 to 45 minutes, and that tends to usually work the way best now.
That's right, I think.
Yeah.
So the next question, you said is pronounced Ursula?
Usually. Yeah.
Right, he asks, from a technical standpoint, the distribution has gone from Bandcamp to a variety of platforms, so I want to know more about the transition to being such a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, that is a very good point indeed, that one, because certainly Ushale was my third, fourth guest. He was one of the very, very first guests I had. And it's the way I did it then was, at the time, I started off on Bandcamp. And the reason I started on Bandcamp was, in hindsight, perhaps wasn't the best method, but it was because I was uploading a lot of music through Bandcamp. And I thought to myself, I know how to use the package. I'll put podcasts on there, even though it's not really perhaps a podcast label, a setup really, more than for music. But that started off then. Over time, I started using better equipment on it. Because some of the early recordings, it's not the people, it was the recording equipment. Something wasn't up to it. Well, I've had different laptops. I've done them in person, on the phone, and telephone recordings. Sometimes the early ones didn't quite work out. But you were responsible, actually, Amanda, for the quality of probably improving actually to a degree. Because people want to know this. A year or two into Spoken Label, I did have a look at everyone of networks and stuff, and it wasn't as straightforward as it is now.
Yeah.
Because you had to, at one point, about 4.5 years ago, upload it on various websites. And you try to upload it on 12, 13, 14 websites. It's just not worth it.
No, it'd take a long time.
It's taken a long, long time. And then we got into, let's get this right, I'm really bad with years now, so I do apologise for this. 2.5 years into it, I started putting them onto Mixcloud as well. Mixcloud, again, is quite not bad like a website, Mixcloud, but I think I prefer to use a Bandcamp on it eventually. But it's interesting enough with Mixcloud, I don't think it's that well used a website actually.
I think it depends on how many followers you've got.
Yeah, I think it does really. Same goes with Bandcamp to a different degree. Bandcamp's more accessible than the link itself. But then I managed to work out how to actually, this is my own fault, I should have done this before, was how to link it all onto YouTube.
Yeah.
Quick bit of conversion, that worked really well, that does. And then I had to put playlists up and stuff like that. And you then found out about Anchor, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I'd mentioned it to you a few months before because I'd done the podcast as a guest with someone else. And you said, I can't remember what you said, about the quality. I think it wasn't very good, so I never looked into it until so many months later when I found it again and put Reading in Bed on, and it surprised you by texting you saying it's got up to Spotify. You were like, what?
Yeah, I remember that because I didn't work at the time on that one. I mean, it was like running out of the office. How the heck did you do that? And then it was like, but then it's honestly, it's easy enough. It's surprising nowadays is if you use the right server, and Anchor's just one of several.
Yeah.
So we've got Spoken Label now is on about 12 different networks that link with Anchor, isn't it?
Yeah.
iTunes, Spotify, Breaker.
Yeah. And Bullhorn.
Bullhorn, which we just found out about last night. We didn't know about that one. Listen Notes, Castbox, Castro, and other ones.
Yeah.
And that's something, a lot of it's changed it around a lot, really. It's made it smoother. Now, obviously, when you talk about the quality of recording, it's a different ballgame altogether. Because, obviously, with the country being in lockdown, just before that, I just started using Zoom I had. And Zoom itself, I found the quality of recording is a lot easier. And it's certainly like it's where, Amanda, certainly you hadn't really heard of Zoom, had you, before?
I used it once for an interview that never got broadcast, so I don't know what happened to that interview.
Yeah, a good friend of ours, Randy Horton, who we know from Writing Loud Stockport, and also runs his own night called Write and Release. He tried it out about 2 years ago, he had, and got me, a friend who's in Texas, and somebody else I've forgotten, to go and test it. I think he was obviously thinking about doing the night through that, but whatever reason, it didn't happen. And then certainly, when we went into lockdown itself, I decided at the time to people telling me about Zoom, Randy was I think it was Randy actually. I decided to myself, we're going to run nights on it. Let me give this a go, see what it's like on Zoom. And the quality is, the quality is improving the recording because it seems to work really well.
Yeah.
That's why certainly over the last reason why I've been doing so many in the past couple of months is simply it's just such a smooth process because you've seen it, Amanda, haven't you, where you click at the top of it, you just press record, don't you?
Yeah.
And at the end of it, it's just indicated like you cut it in half what you need to do, and then it's given me more confidence, that's for sure. Because as you've seen them, I've been putting out one that people may notice, I may not. Amanda's sometimes sitting next to me when I'm recording, and sometimes sitting in on them, aren't you?
Yeah.
And it's like I'm just trying to. A lot of it is trying to get the same routine, really, and then just don't like planning it. But I do like to know a little bit about people speaking to, so we can have a couple of themes to go through and make sure we cover bullet points.
Okay, so those are all the questions from people have sent in. So I've got a couple of questions of my own now. So the first one is, have you ever recorded a podcast with someone, but for whatever reason haven't been able to broadcast it?
Yes.
So, are you going to share?
I can't name names, but I did do a podcast with somebody that turned up not drunk.
Yeah, I know this is. I'm not going to name names.
On other substances, and it was unbroadcastable, put it bluntly. But that I learned from that, and I'll tell you very truthfully this. This person I have done a session with now, and the plan is to do another session with in the future. But the one thing I've learned is, when I used to do sessions with people in person before lockdown, I'd be saying, if you want to have a drink, I suggest do it after.
Yeah.
But mostly, I do the sessions in person. You know where I go, don't you? I have a couple of locations I like going to.
Yeah.
There's a cafe in that St. Peter's Square in Central Manchester. I love going there. It can be a bit noisy, but it's nice. I like the acoustics in there. And it's also good if you're in a cafe. You don't tend to get idiots walking past you screaming. I've had that before now as well.
Hopefully we'll be back there again someday, because I know I've sat in at least one with you.
About four. We've sat in about four and then we have, right? So that's why. But that's what you do. Is a lot of it is thinking about what you're going to do things. You can do it in a pub. If you're going to do it in a pub, you could be anything goes, and you can lose control of it quite easily if you're both drinking. And it's not the point behind it, is really, I don't think.
No. Okay, so the next question I've got is, have any of your guests done or said something you weren't expecting during the podcast?
Yes, there is. I'm trying to think of the person now as well. Yeah, I did actually. Yeah, somebody who I don't speak to anymore now actually announced halfway through the podcast that I was setting up a book publishing house, and would I come on board to help them run it?
And how did that work out?
Mistake. It's usually best to know sort of things if you get asked in advance, basically, because that really don't put people on the spot.
Putting you on the spot a little bit. I suppose you could edit it out and pretend it never happened.
So that's what happened there. But I said it was a funny one, because the trouble is when you're doing podcasts, you never know what you're going to get sometimes. I've had writers give me free copies of books before now. The books was on air, and I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
That's why. So, and I've had also had I'll tell you who it was now. I can't name him because you know him, right? Somebody once who I sat in Central Cafe, I tell you about Central Library. A mutual friend of mine, Amanda, who was not a writer, saw me interviewing somebody, and it was quite a young lady this was, and you can hear it on the recording, bang, bang, bang on the window in certain.
Judging by the actions that you're doing there, I can guess who this is that we're talking about.
Certain fingers, shall we say, got sticking up a lot of the air, and then he's doing that on his head as well.
Does this person, their first name has 5 letters in it?
I can't say anymore, right? And that person, then I had to literally, thankfully I got to the end of the first half and I had to literally pause the recording, then run outside and stop it saying certain words, right?
Yeah.
Other one that happened that caught me out of mind was, this one's not been broadcast yet, but it's been edited quite well, so. I did a podcast earlier, writer, just for Speakeasy on a couple of weeks ago, actually. And I didn't mistakenly didn't put a separate code on it. I had the same code. So somebody decided to come straight onto Skype an hour early, on Zoom an hour early, trying to work out the package.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It shows you through the lady in question that I was chatting to, but we managed to get round it. So the guy I spoke to just apologised.
I remember sat in here and I heard you saying to whoever it was, so I'm doing an interview with someone.
Yeah. Then frequently, over time in live podcasts, my brother's rang me up. Our dear friend James has. He's rang me up quite a few occasions now, but little podcasts.
Oh, there's a handy little button on your phone that says "Do Not Disturb," so you can stop that.
That's what I've been doing the last couple of months. So I've learned the hard way. Mute calls, right? So you don't get interrupted too much. But I think a lot of it is it adds to the fun of it sometimes. You don't know what you're going to get. And do you understand me? You've seen me do live podcasts all the time. And they're great fun sometimes because the unpredictability.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're going to get. Like I might make a horrendous mistake, misjudge something on a piece. I get told afterwards, it wasn't about that. Oh, sorry. I know.
Okay, so the last question I've got here for you. If you could interview anyone, dead or alive, famous or not, who would it be and why?
Oh, that's a very good question. Very, very good. Oh, that's impossible. I'd love to interview Johnny Depp.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Could I sit in on that one?
Yeah, I thought you would. And also, I know Amanda would obviously love me to mention the Winchester brothers from Supernatural in character and Cassiel.
Yeah.
Like I said, I would love to chat to Johnny Depp because I find he's had a bit of a rough ride, I think, in the last couple of years. But I think he's an interesting man still because he's done a lot of his life and so I think he'd be an interesting man to talk to. And he does tend to open himself up. I've seen interviews before now. If you treat him with respect, and I also love to chat to people like Oscar Wilde.
Yeah.
Oscar Wilde lives a heck of a life. So, is there anybody Amanda you would like to chat to? Anybody famous?
I think it'd have to be Stephen King, wouldn't it?
Oh, well,
It's like if you said to me I'm interviewing Stephen King next week, I'd be like, I'm sitting in on that whether you like it or not.
No. Oh, and
because he's like my writing idol.
of course, people know obviously now I love Paul Auster as well. I've seen so many interviews with Paul Auster, and I pretty well know what the topics are. He comes up with things now, and that I'd love to try and ask him questions that will bring themes into it he doesn't normally talk about. That's what happens sometimes when you do these sort of things, Amanda. Anyone interested is you don't know what you're going to get sometimes because if you don't plan it too much, and if you know, say for example, there's a podcast I think it's going up just after this one by my dear friend Jeff Arama, and you know how long I've known Jeff for.
Yeah.
Me and Jeff go back about 13 years. And I was getting Jeff come back with bits of topics and I'll chat to Jeff that I didn't know about. And it's great fun sometimes that you learn things about people. And the one thing I have learned a lot from spoken language, and you've seen this yourself, I made friends with it.
Yeah, there's like all these random people who keep popping up and I'm like, how do you know that? And I'm like, oh, I interviewed them such and such.
Yeah. And it's the thing that always funny is spoken language, and this is what I remember you telling me this, Amanda, as well. Just after we got together, didn't we, 4 years ago now. You always kept thinking eventually I'd run out of people to talk to.
Yeah, and you just keep finding them everywhere.
Yeah. Is it worth me, do you reckon I should tell people how we do the research a lot of things on this podcast? Yeah, I think it probably is just to conclude. It's an interesting point, because when I'm finding people, because obviously we co-run a nightlife and Steve, Speakeasy in Stretford. Quite regularly I see people coming down there first time. And I think it was artists, I thought they were really good. I want to talk to them further. And then we speak to people other nights, don't we, and go to stuff like that. So.
And you also get a lot of people that recommend to other people.
Yeah, get loads sometimes. And I've had it recently when a writer in Ireland recommended their best mate to me. And she was brilliant, she was. Really, really talented. And then she recommended somebody else in Dublin to me. It's going up live in July. He was brilliant. He's got about 4 people he can recommend to me. It just
never stops, does it?
It doesn't, but it's like you find a lot of the time when you really get into this something, you meet, you chat to few good writers. They know the writer and their writing friends that have referred to me aren't going to be rubbish.
Yeah.
I've had the odd one where I've sat down and thought, no, I can't. I'm not doing it. That just didn't grab me. But when everyone approaches me, I'm finding I've noticed that nowadays. Yeah, you're a good writer. There's a story to be told there.
So if anyone's listening, get in touch as well. If you want to be interviewed.
Yeah. Well, I said I've done 200. Yeah. Certainly.
We'll try to get to 300.
I think I'll get 300. That's for sure. Because at the moment, there's certainly quite a few.
We'll get Stephen King to interview you for the 300 form.
That's an idea, isn't it? Yeah. That could be fun, man. Definitely so. Well, I certainly would like to get 300. All being well, we'll get those.
Okay.
As we say in Reading in Bed, our other podcast, say goodbye to the camera, Amanda.
Goodbye, camera, even though there's no camera.
Take care, guys. See you soon.